Hello everyone, it's Ted here, and as you can see, we're back with another Skin Club video about the thing that we all love the most, which is Counter-Strike 2. First of all, just to give a quick shout out, Skin Club, thanks for making all of this possible and for giving me even more reasons to talk about CS even more often. So for today's video, by the way, I wanted to thank every one of you that has gone through the article about the young in-game leaders, the top 3 under 20 years old in-game leaders in the world that we released last week that I wrote. We are actually, the reason I'm mentioning this, we are doing something similar now, or something aligned to that article in today's video. The main goal of today's video, the main purpose of it, is going to be to look at one of the teams for which is playing actually one of the in-game leaders that I wrote about last week. Because this team, I think, is standing out a little bit more. And I'm not talking only about, obviously we're not talking tier 1 Counter-Strike here yet, but the reason I want to talk about this is because this is an organization that has incredibly rich history when it comes down to esports, an organization that is really successful and has achieved pretty much everything in Dota, and an organization that entered Counter-Strike a couple years ago with a really big lineup, a place where people like Alexi B, like Flames have played, other guys like Nico, like Valda, like Mantu, so pretty high quality players, right? Flames is right now on the #1 team in the world, Vitality, and OG was kind of like a trampoline for him from Endpoint. Alexi B obviously is the in-game leader of Navi, which is one of the best teams in the world right now. So we're going to be talking about OG, as I already said. OG Esports, which has gone through a lot of rebuilds, a lot of tough times in the last, let's say, 2 years, with a lot of players going in, out, a lot of mixed results, and ultimately OG had to go for the downgrade, similar to other teams like Fnatic, like NIP, like ENCE, and fight their way through the tier 2 online circuit. Now, with the VRS being that bigger of a factor, those teams don't really have a choice anymore. They need to play all those events that they're being invited to, and they need to do really well, which we know in online Counter-Strike, when you have to play an abysmal amount of officials pretty much every single day and you barely have any time left for practice or to prepare for your opponents, is a really difficult task. So the reason I want to speak about OG is because I feel like they're actually doing a really good job, and I think this is one of the teams that could give some pleasant surprises in the near future, considering they are in a position as well with which they could qualify for the MRQ, meaning that we could actually see them fight to, well, we will see them fight, but we could see them make it all the way to the major if the stars align. So without further ado, let's get into it and see why is OG actually doing such a good job recently. Okay, now we're already on HOTV, so we're gonna dissect this conversation. We're gonna separate it in a couple different segments. We're gonna start it off with the overall get to know what OG has been up to recently, for those of you that might have not been following the team as much for whatever reason. So right now, as you can see on HOTV, OG don't even have a permanent 5th player. They started the year with obviously benching Moto, benching Nexius. Spook was the one that joined in for Nexius. Obviously, Spook, for those of you that don't know, he used to play on Sprout a little bit. He's a project of the 00 Nation Academy. He's a massive Swedish talent. Spook is probably one of the most hyped up rifles, and as you can see, results for him have been fairly consistent. But he is an incredibly hyped up player for a reason. As you can see, he was on Johnny Speeds as well, most recently towards the end of 2024, and pretty much the entirety of 2024. He was playing on that fully Swedish lineup, but because obviously there was some organizational issues, he was looking for next place to go, and he ended up being on OG. Now, with that being said, OG don't have a 5th. They have been trialing out different opers, and the direction that this team decided to go for around half a year ago, as you can see, 7 months, when they picked up Crizon and Buzz, and later on ended up getting Spook as well, is one that I really like. I feel like with OG, they obviously noticed that if we look at all the players that have been part of this team only last year, there's a lot of people that came in, that went out. If we go into all time, it becomes even crazier than that. But the truth is, maybe the only iteration of OG that had any success was the one with Flames, Nico, Mantu, Valda, Alexi B when they were in there together, and with Rug obviously being the coach. I think that was the strongest one. Obviously, there was a period with Nexa as well where they were doing, I guess, all right, but the one with Nexa, with Neofrag, Fiku, Dexter, all of you probably remember, a lot of people were hyped up about it, but it didn't really work out and it didn't pan out as it was supposed to. After Alexi left, there was some mixed results. They were able to qualify for some majors, but after that, things fell off, right? There was a lot of weird moves going on with Marix coming in but not really playing from the academy. Fasher, Regali, Keto, Heavy God, I guess, was a bit of a bit of a, let's say, light in the tunnel. I feel like, because he is an incredibly high quality player that came out of this project. But all in all, OG has been really struggling to achieve anything recently, and since the Blast Paris major where they got eliminated in challengers, they haven't been able to make a major, and it has been a little bit tough. So the decision that OG made was, you know what, let's scrape all of this. Let's stop trying to pick up guys that have been brushed aside from tier 1 teams and go with the youth. Go with young people that we can develop, and we can create our own I guess, style. We can create our own identity and try and create our own dynasty of a team, which I personally like. Crizzen and Buzz. I feel like Crizzen getting picked up from Miles NXT was a genius move, as he's only 18, and obviously if you want to know a little bit more about him personally and why I think he's such a great caller, you can go and read the article that I already mentioned about the three best under 20 years old in-game leaders right now in World Counter-Strike. But it is a long-term project that OG wanted to go for. And as much as I like it, I feel like maybe midway through, they realized, okay, we need an oper that could be a difference maker, right? Especially with how difficult it is nowadays to be an oper. We need at least one person that is a little bit more experienced, and that could be the star of the team, because obviously Fiku's been around for such a long time, but he's not necessarily the guy that's going to be putting out the big numbers. Crizzen is a fragging IGL to some extent and a space creating IGL. He's not going to be putting out 120 rating every single time though. And Buzz is a good player, but he's much more of a supportive element. So what do you go for? You go for Spook, who is a star rifle, who is an incredibly high ceiling player, and I love that move. But then you're left with a bit of an issue when it comes down to the opening. Now, I personally love Moto as an opener. I think he's really underrated, but I don't think Moto on this team was working. And I think Moto was in a really tough spot where he couldn't really provide what the team needed out of him. So what did they do? They started trialing opers out. They played a little bit with Afro. They were winning, but apparently things didn't click. And then it starts getting interesting. They decide to go for Nikodos, who, as of right now, has played the last 22 best of threes with OG, even though he's not officially announced as a permanent fifth. It kind of feels like they've been trialing him out for such a long time that it feels inevitable. At some point, he's going to get signed to the team. And out of those 22 best of threes they've played, they've been able to win 17. And Nikodos has been playing really well. Now, you're looking at some of the stats, and you're saying, hey, those numbers don't really look that impressive. They look all right, but isn't Nikodos supposed to be a higher tier oper? Well, you say that. Sure, I am personally, and I wasn't the biggest fan of Nikodos. I think on a lot of the teams that he was brought in, he wasn't able to deliver what people expected. I personally don't think he was ready to be a tier 1 oper before, and a tier 1 solid player before. But the truth is, this guy is skilled. This guy is incredibly skilled. This guy has the experience of playing a couple majors. He's been on top tier orgs now. And the moment that you bring in someone like him, that was, I don't want to say brushed aside, but obviously you all remember how the Gaming Gladiators turned out, and that was the most recent project Nikodos was part of. It didn't really succeed. It was a big failure for everyone involved, all players involved. So I think for someone like that, that's had a taste of tier 1 Counter-Strike, and then things fall off, but he's still pretty young. This is actually the perfect project, because he's going to be motivated. He's going to be bringing in the experience. He's going to be a little bit more mature than some of the players. But in the same time, he's not playing with 16-year-olds. He's playing with a bunch of really talented guys, some of them with good experience, like Buzz, for example. Fiku's been around for such a long time. And he's playing with people that are going to, I guess, make him even hungrier for the game again. So I honestly think that Nikodos, at the start, I had mixed feelings. But since joining, he's actually been playing really well. You're looking at some of the numbers, and I usually don't like reading out numbers, but one of the reasons, or a few of the reasons that I think this has been working out so well, and of course we're going to look at some of the team results as well, but Nikodos in general has been putting out incredibly consistent performances. And one of the big differences between him in CSGO and him in CS2 right now is the fact that he can get away with being a rifle most of the time, which a lot of people didn't like about him before. The truth is, I looked at some of the numbers. He was actually getting a lot of AWP kills even back in CSGO. Now in CS2 is more difficult. So I feel like Nikodos is going to be one of those OPers that actually benefit from the fact that we're playing CS2, because you're looking at T side, and I decided to compare what he was doing, how Afro was doing on the team and how Nikodos is doing on the team. Nikodos has posted across those 22 best of 3. He's posted a 119 T side rating, which tells us a couple things. Obviously, he's not opening as much on T side, right? The statistics are not as important as a pure number. But what does Nikodos do for this team on the T side? He can fill in every single rifle role. He can support with utility. He can refrag. He can clutch. And you know he's a really clutch player. You know he's the type of guy you're going to put in a 1vx situation, and he could win that because he's just skilled. He's just a gamer. He's incredibly mechanically gifted. And as much as maybe some of the opening work on the T side nowadays in CS2 is really difficult, let's say a map like Inferno, it's nearly impossible to open on the T side unless you just want to go for a specific one peak that could win you the round with a good timing. Nikodos is incredibly versatile, and to have an oper like that on the T side in a game that is incredibly T-sided, that is much more difficult for the opers, is actually a gift for a team. It's actually a massive benefit, and I think that's one of the main reasons that he's been working so well under OG and under Crizzen, because Crizzen is a really dynamic in-game leader in a way. He loves switching up the tempo. He loves playing really quick and fast-paced Counter-Strike, especially when things are working. Nikodos is really good with that. He's got really good, I guess, sense of adapting himself to what the team wants to go for. And when you're looking at that aspect of it, you're saying, okay, T-side wise, he's doing his job. He's doing a fantastic job even. And again, that is coming from someone that hasn't always enjoyed Nikodos as a player. But I think on OG, he's actually working out really well, and he's contributing a lot to the team. You're looking at the CT side, and this is where things could get, I guess, a little bit funky if you're I guess looking at just the numbers and you're saying, well, okay, he's doing well on the T side. We're gonna check it out here. He's doing well on the T side. He's posted, as I told you, 119. Then you look at the CT side and you're thinking, okay, 1.07. So he's doing better than Afro was doing. Obviously, this is 5 maps, but the larger sample size, still Afro is doing better on CT sides than Nikodos, because he played more than 5 maps with him. But you're looking at some of the stats and you're saying, well, shouldn't an Oper be higher rated? Shouldn't be having more firepower output? When you look at the games of OG, I think it's pretty clear what Nikodos needs to be doing sometimes. For those of you that are watching OG, one of the most impressive things about Crizzen as an in-game leader, I feel like, is that he's able to take the reins when the team is struggling and open up space, both on the T side and the CT side. CT side wise, he can be a playmaker if he has a good game. Spook can be a playmaker as well. And obviously your supportive elements in Fiku and Buzz, they can have good games every now and then. You're looking at the numbers of Nikodos, you're saying it's not impressive. What we should be focusing on is opening kills CT side right now. Because you're looking at the big discrepancy. You're looking at what Afro was going for, and sure, the success rate was good. But you're looking at a 4% increase in opening attempts, and I think this is where Nikodos is actually really valuable for this team. Sure, he's not gonna be saving as much, which nowadays is actually really important for an opener staying alive as much. He's playing a really risque type of Counter-Strike, but I actually think it's refreshing, and it actually makes OG a little bit more difficult to read, because you have Crizzen, who's constantly going for aggressive plays, Spook, who's constantly going for aggressive plays, and then you have Nikodos, who's the third player, but with a really thin difference behind Crizzen, who's going for those, and he's got a 64% success rate. So a lot of the time when the team is struggling, especially on the CT side, and they need someone to open up something, Nikodos is going to be incredibly proactive. And I feel like, obviously, this is from the outside, and you can never know what's going on inside of the server, but when you get a more experienced opera like him, who's got a little bit more confidence in his playstyle, he's going to be asking, not even asking, he's going to be calling that he's going to go for a play a lot more, right? He knows what he wants to do a lot of the time, and he knows how to give the team an advantage. So I feel like that has actually made a bit of a difference in comparison to, let's say, a Moto, who's a little bit more quiet and a little bit more passive, Afro, who's maybe not feeling at his best and most confident after Fnatic and wasn't going for as many aggressive plays. When you're looking at Nikodos, he's not going for it all the time, but when he does, it is incredibly efficient. And he knows how to. I feel like when OG is struggling on the CT side, Nikodos is the type of guy that could be the second or the third after Crizan and Spook to open up space. And suddenly, if you're OG and you're struggling, you have three individuals that are willing to actually take space, go for aggressive peaks, and they know how to get away with it. And for an Oper, I think is incredibly valuable, especially when you're playing on a young team. And that is not shot. That's no shot at Crizan for sometimes being short on ideas. Every single in-game leader is sometimes short on ideas. But when you have an Oper, and I honestly believe the Oper should be the second person to speak the most in the team, because you do have such an important gun, even in Counter-Strike 2, where oping is a little bit more difficult. When the Oper is the second largest voice or the biggest voice in the team, as I feel like Nikodos is on OG, and again, this is us just guessing, making an educated guess on the back of some information we have about the players, the backgrounds, and how the team is playing. From the outside, it feels like Nikodos is taking initiative a lot more. And I feel like this is only benefiting a young team like OG, because it brings more confidence to everyone else, knowing that they have an Oper that they can rely on, that can clutch, play rifle, open things up on CT sides when things are not working out with the AVP. And in general, he always has been, I think, praised for the fact that he can brighten up the mood in a team, so to speak. So yeah, I feel like Nikodos has been doing really well. And another thing that I wanted to highlight, which is a cool comparison between Nikodos in 2024 and Nikodos now, he's actually trying to op a lot more. You're looking at 2024, and again, obviously, this is going to be a larger sample size, but Nikodos in 2024 got only 24.5% of his kills using the AVP. 1/4 out of all his kills were with the AVP. So far in 2025, since joining OG or joining on a trial, we're looking at 32%-ish, which is only 7%. Sure, you're not looking at 50%, but if you look at some of the other Oper names, I mean, there's much more Opers that have lower percentages of OP kills, including, let's say, a Zywoo on Vitality, right? Because it's just so much harder now to only kill people with the AVP, considering how the economy is for the CT side, how advantageous the game is for the Ts, and how difficult it is to actually op on the T side as well. So there's a lot of factors to it, but Nikodos is still putting in the effort to play the op more when the team needs him. And I think this is the big difference that we have to draw between Nikodos before and Nikodos now, is the fact that Nikodos before would be criticized that he seemed to prefer the rifle sometimes when the team could have benefited from him having the AVP. Nikodos now, it feels like from the outside and when you're watching the games, that he is picking up the op when the team needs him, but then when he's got the option, he could rifle, sure. There's no issues with it, and CS2 provides you with much more opportunities to actually not use an AVP in the server, right? So I think it complements him, and it shows that he is putting in the effort to do something extra. And just so we're not talking empty stats of individual players, just to have a bit of a bigger look onto what the team has been achieving, we're looking at the CCT Season 2 Series 20, which has actually put OG in a great placement right now. And when I say a great placement, I'm going to go back to the initial page here. We're talking number 23 in the world, meaning you're top 20 in Europe. They are top 20 in Europe, meaning they're most likely going to get an invite for the MRQ, or for those of you that don't know, this is the major close qualifier pretty much. So OG is probably going to get an invite to the European MRQ. OG is with an opportunity to qualify for the major, and OG has just gone off to win one of the last CCT event before the lockdown for the major invites, beating some pretty good teams and beating them in style. They start off their participation in the main Swiss with a 0-2 loss to Navi Junior, and then you're looking at a 2-0 Partizan, 2-0 Sinners, 2-1 Fnatic. Then you're looking at the playoffs, 2-0 Namiga, 2-0 Apogee, 2-1 Parivision with James, Kicker, Belchanok, Noda, Travis in a best of 3 that they lose the first map 13-2. And the second map, Ancient, Crizan takes the reins massively. And I'm actually gonna show you the exact number because it's crazy. 27-12. And when you're looking at the CT side, it's 13-6. This is one of those games where you're looking at 27 and 16, and you're saying, you're looking at 27-12, sorry, and you're saying this looks impressive. It doesn't even paint the picture. It's not even close. I was watching the game. Crizan did show that he could be the captain to, I guess, lead the team lead the team forward when everyone else is struggling, when the team looks like they're in the doldrums. All of those things contribute to a grand final against the 500 team that is incredibly hot on their heels right now, where OG dismantle the Bulgarians and they don't let him in the game. And Fiku drops a 42-14 absolutely casually. Where I'm going with this is, and the reason I'm going through this result and putting so much emphasis on this CCT event, first of all, there is some teams in here who are going to be at the MRQ. So this is already a step further for OG. And sure, they did end up losing the PGO close qualifier to Apogee for PGO Bucharest, but they still beat Heroic, Navi Junior, Sinners, Passion UA, and OG is constantly being some of the teams that we're being critical of for not putting on more consistent performances, and every now and then they would bring down a bigger team that they are on paper probably supposed to lose to. And one of the things that makes it even more impressive is the fact that this was the first event that OG have won, and we're not counting open qualifiers right now, we're counting main events, online tournaments, whatever you want. The first tournament OG as an organization has won since the Spring Sweet Spring 2, which was in 2021 May, June. And sure, you're looking at that. It's already crazy enough that it's been 4 years. Look at the team that OG had the last time they actually won an online event like this one. Mantu, Valda, Alexi B, Nico Flames. This is how long ago we're talking. And now this team, which is playing with an Oper that they're still trialing out, playing with Spook, who was signed 2 months ago, with an 18-year-old in-game leader. Fiku's still here, but everything else has changed. And sure, the end of last year was a bit of a shaky experience, but I guess that was still the rebuild going through. It finally feels like OG have a direction. And this team has won the first event for the organization since they had Flames and Alexi B on the team. So I think there's only positive signs here. Obviously, it's difficult from the outside to say what the dynamic is going to be between Lambert and Krisen, but apparently it's working. And I feel like from what I've seen from the outside, OG is one of those teams that is going to play incredibly proactive, really well prepared Counter-Strike, really well put together Counter-Strike. They're not relying on the individuals going crazy, but sometimes if they need to, there is people to step up. Now, one of the big issues with this team, as I guess is the big issue with a lot of teams, is that it could be difficult to identify who the number one star of the team is, right? It's probably supposed to be Spook, Nikodos at times. Those are the main two characters. The good news is that Krisen is an in-game leader, and we're not looking at the rating again. We're looking at the pure in-game impact, and when he steps up, actually, the fact that it matters the most. This team looks really well balanced. It looks really well put together. I don't know if this is going to be the OG that is going to skyrocket back into tier 1. What I will say is I feel like this is one of the most exciting teams to be watching right now in tier 2 Counter-Strike. And I really do believe that whatever Krisen and Lambert have been doing the last couple months has been working out really well. And yeah, I think this is definitely a dark horse to be looking at for the MRQ, maybe even potentially for the first stage of the major. I think OG can go in and actually put some pride to the name again as a young team that is coming out. Obviously not as an OG that we're expecting to be permanently in the tier 1 scene, because I think they're far from that, but they are showing that they can be a level above in the Counter-Strike fundamentally that they play in comparison to a lot of the other teams in online CS in Europe, which is already impressive enough, and we are usually praising teams like that. So yeah, I think they've got some good balance. Obviously, for my money, I'd say that they probably let Nikodos stay on a permanent contract because the team has been playing so well and there's been so many improvements. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited for this team. I am excited for this team. I think you should be excited for this team if obviously you're not stuck there watching only top 10 teams in the world of Counter-Strike. But there is a lot of bread here, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the boys on the screen right now we do end up seeing in on the big stages in the next couple of years. And who knows, maybe we could see some of them win a lot of big events. I definitely believe that for a couple of the players on the lineup. I'm not gonna fire names because I'm gonna leave someone out, but for some of the players on this lineup, I really believe they're destined for greatness in this game. So yeah, that's what this video was all about. It was about spreading a little bit more awareness on OG, giving you a heads up that you could be expecting some cool things out of this lineup. I definitely will be. And hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you will have some time to watch those guys play when they go to the MRQ, because they are a pretty exciting team to watch, especially if Nikodos is popping off. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Of course, make sure you go and check out all the other content that SkinClub is putting out, because there's a lot of it by other coaches, players, legends of the game, analysts, casters. There's a lot of people bringing you wholesome content every single day. So make sure you go and check it out. And yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon again. Bye bye.